What the am I saying? Let's do it again, baby. I'm feeling it, baby. This Onefinity is my 7th CNC machine. In this video, we're gonna be discussing why I made the switch from my Laguna IQs, which have made me hundreds of thousands of dollars, to this Onefinity. So we're gonna be covering why I made the switch, why I chose Onefinity, and my complaints about this machine. Let's get right into it. So why did I switch from my Laguna IQs to this Onefinity? Well, quite frankly, why I made the switch, and Tech Guy 38, I believe, commented on my last video and he knew exactly why I made the switch. I made the switch because those Laguna IQs are no longer relatable. When I bought them 8-10 years ago, they were only $6,000, which at the time there wasn't a lot of CNC options, so $6,000 was like a really good option. Well, now they no longer make that Laguna IQ model, and I think the model is like a Laguna IQ Pro, and it's like $15,500. And personally, there's a lot better options that I've seen out there for $15,500 besides that IQ Pro. So I don't want to promote something that's, one, not relatable to y'all, not affordable, and that's just really not the best option. And so that's why I got the Onefinity, or a hobbyist machine that's more relatable to y'all. So why did I choose this Onefinity over all the other CNC brands? Well, over the years, I've had numerous CNCs from numerous different brands, and I've developed really about 7 things that I actually look for when going through CNCs. And so when I was searching, whether it's a Shapeoko, Onefinity, Long Mill, I'm not going to necessarily bash any of the other brands because that's not my cup of tea. And for reference, Onefinity is not sponsoring any of this. They just hit my 7 things that I look for. So none of these are in any order, but here are the 7 things that I look for when buying a CNC and why the Onefinity hits all those markers. Number 1 is rigidity. Is this machine rigid enough? Can it withstand the wear and tear? With these assemble CNCs that you have to put together yourself, you know, you got to make sure the table is solid and sturdy. But as far as the metal goes, the extra stiffy goes, this machine is very rigid and will be able to withstand all that I have. So that's one of the things that I look for. In the more industrial machines, obviously they weigh 20,000 pounds, 5,000 pounds. So they're typically super rigid. So this is the first check mark that I can typically check off that I look for in CNCs. The second thing I look for is spindle compatibility. I am not a huge fan of routers, but I understand why you have to have them because spindles are very expensive. But from my experience, a spindle does pay for itself in cut quality and ease of use down the road. Because if you're doing this as a business, which I typically am, I can program on the software itself, on the G code, how fast the spindle should be able to spin. And so if I have to have somebody else press go on the machine besides myself, and it's a different, they're running 2 or 3 different programs, they don't have to know how to set the RPMs on this thing. Also, routers can't go to a low RPM and still have a lot of torque, whereas spindles can run at 8,000 RPMs and still have a lot of torque because of how they're made. So that's another factor that I look for when buying CNCs. Factor number 3, software compatibility. What kind of software do I need to run this CNC? I personally don't like to have a laptop sitting right beside it because where I'm at in the middle of the country, and y'all probably know this as well, internet is like still AOL dial-up type stuff, right? So if I don't have to have a laptop with some kind of internet connection right beside it where I can program it, in a different space, that is a huge plus for me. And so I typically use Aspire or VCarve Pro. And so as long as the machine is compatible with Aspire or VCarve Pro, that's awesome, and that's another thing I look for. I made that mistake only one time, and believe it or not, is when I bought my $300,000 CNC, I didn't see if it was compatible with Aspire. And the crazy thing is, the other program that I had to buy to run that giant CNC was $7,000, and it costs another $2,000 every single year. So even though I have this chart, I didn't always follow it because the flash and all the cool stuff for that giant CNC kind of got in my head, and I ended up paying for it on the back end because that software was not compatible with it, and it is still a huge headache, and that is something that CR Unstrud needs to fix because that software is really difficult to navigate. Factor number 4, size and fit. Is it the size that I want, and does it fit the space I have? I wanted a 4x4 CNC so I can do half sheets of plywood, and so yes, it checked that. And does it fit the space I have? Yes, this room is 12 foot wide, 8 foot tall, right? It fits the room I have, so size and fit, check and check. And like my wife always says, it's the perfect size. Factor number 5, ease of use. This is probably the most important factor I look for when buying any of my machines, whether it's a laser, a 3D printer, a planer, a CNC. How easy is it for me to click go? That's all I look for. Like, how hard is it to run the machine, right? Can I easily just click go and it starts running? If I have to save the file over here, move it to here, move it through easel, move it through 3D, whatever, and then finally get it to my machine, I don't want that machine because one, it's really hard to scale with that, and those lost seconds are precious. When you're programming like multiple different last names on this thing, right, and you have this repeatable product, if it takes a long time to get to the computer, to the CNC, I don't like that, I don't want that, so I don't buy it. Factor number 6, price point. This thing is, I think, about $4,000, and that falls within my price range that I was looking for. And a simple rule of thumb, if a CNC is within 10 to 20% up or down of comparable CNCs, then I think it's good, because once you start making money with the CNC, that extra $500 that you spend, or extra $1,000 that you spend, or $300 that you spend will easily pay for itself over the life of the machine if you're making money with it. I mean, when I bought my $6,000 machines, right, they made me $500,000 in revenue, not profit, but revenue, which easily paid for the machines. A $60,000 or $70,000 shop saver made over $1 million worth of product. And so typically the price point of the machine, as long as it's comparable to other machines, will easily pay for itself, so I don't stress over price point too much. Factor number 7 is customer support. So does the machine I'm buying have forums or customer support that I can look at, that I can go on to get help when needed? Because any kind of downtime when that machine is not running and not making me money is lost time. And so how fast, whenever I have a problem, can I address the problem with a phone call to customer support or with online forums, which is a community-based support? Now guys, if you ever switched from one brand to another, if there's points I missed, leave that in the comments so you can help other CNC people on their journey make a buying decision. Now, with all those good things about this Onefinity, what are my complaints and my dislikes about it? So let's get right into it. Complaint number 1, and this is true, I guess, for all hobbyist CNCs, is I hate assembling CNCs. This is the first CNC I've ever had to assemble. All my other ones came built, but I understand that they save so much money and so much shipping with non-assembled CNCs. So I just hate assembly processes in general, but I do think this was relatively easy to assemble. It took me a weekend and I got this thing up and running. Complaint number 2 is this machine is so rigid, right? It's like all this metal stuff, but to hold on this spindle is only 2 screws. And then to hold on this whole Z bracket is only 4 screws. I call that putting racing tires on a moped. Why put street racing tires on a moped? And I think that's what they did here, is since they only have 6 screws on there, you're gonna get increased vibrations, so it doesn't matter how rigid this machine is if you only got 6 screws holding all this stuff in place. Complaint number 3 is documentation. I think they do lack a lot of good documents to figure out the footprint. I mean, we had to call and have them send us over a paper because we couldn't find how big the footprint of this machine is. That's why a few weeks ago, I made an overview video of how big to make everything, because I could not find that anywhere. So I do think they lack documentation and lack good paperwork on how to assemble this whole thing and what size your room should be. And my last complaint, complaint number 4, is tutorials over the Masso. So I understand how to work the Masso relatively because I have a lot of experience in CNCs, but if you're a first-time user and you open this thing, it is absolutely terrifying. You know, you're looking at all this stuff, you have G-code flying in front of you, and even though this controller, I'm telling you guys, is really easy to use, really simple, it's still a lot overwhelming, and they don't have a ton of videos that I have found going over how to use this and how to apply it to your own business and own CNC journey. So I think they do lack all the Masso walkthroughs that they need in order to teach you how to properly use this awesome machine. Now, don't forget, CIC Academy is coming out soon. There's a link in the description to sign up. And remember, guys, if you ain't cutting it close, you ain't cutting it right. It's the perfect size. And like my wife always says, it's the perfect size.